Hello, creative friends. I wanted to go through supplies for the Momigomi class. And the first thing that we're going to do on Friday is make our konnyaku sauce. And in your packet, you will have your konnyaku powder. And what I've given you is a generous 1/4 teaspoon. So it'll be 1/4 teaspoon to 3/4 cup of water. You may need a little bit more. We're going to go through that on Friday. So you'll want 3/4 cup of water, a packet of your konnyaku sauce for Friday. The other thing you want is a container to mix it in. And like to talk about in the workshop, you want to make sure that your brush will actually go into your container. So this is too big and this is too small. So in order to spread the konnyaku sauce around on your paper, I really recommend a 3 to 4 inch brush and then a container that your brush easily fits into and that you can mix everything in. So you'll need that for Friday. This is a Hake, Hake brush. It's a beautiful Japanese brush, not too expensive, but I have also used a chip brush, which you can get at any place that sells house paint, or I don't know if art supply stores always have the chip brushes. They may have some Hake brushes. Either one will actually work. If you love supplies and fancy things, this is a softer, natural bristle brush. It's also very cool and beautiful. But again, the chip brush will work just fine. They sell foam brushes that are 2 and 3 inches. You can get away with a 1 or 2 inch brush as well. But the bigger your brush, the more you're going to be able to spread that konnyaku sauce on all of your papers. So it's really up to you what you've got. So that is for Friday. Friday, I'll also go through more of the papers. For Saturday, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the konnyaku sauce. We're going to spread it on the papers. We're going to knead and crumple, and I'm going to go through all the things you need to know about making Momigomi papers. Then we're going to take one of those papers and we're going to make a little pamphlet stitch book. So what I've got here is you can use either 9 by 12 or 8.5 by 11, whatever size paper you have. And I would recommend a thick Bristol or a watercolor, whatever you have. This is one piece that we're going to make the book cover with, and then we are going to cover it with the Momigomi, and then we'll finish it with a pamphlet stitch. So you may want to have your thicker paper ready, the Bristol board or the watercolor paper, and your inside signature. I believe I'm talking all the bookbinders, so this should be something that you're familiar with. If for any reason you are not, just let me know in class. Happy to go through it. And then I'm using wax linen thread to do a simple pamphlet stitch. So the intention of this book is to make a little book from your Momigomi papers and then to just experience what it's like to glue it onto a little book. With the Momigomi, you can glue, you can also stitch two pieces together and have a very soft cover. This is not hardcover, but it's also not a super soft, flimsy cover. And I'm also going to go through mark making. This may or may not look like stitches to you, but I did this by hand. So you can stitch the Momigomi paper, or you can use a permanent pen and you can draw on it after the fact. So I'll go through all that. Supplies that you need for this little book are your PVA glue, piece of Momigomi paper that we're going to put together, and a piece of either Bristol or watercolor paper that you can fold in half, and then a signature, any paper that you like that will fit inside. If you can have that pre-cut, and ready to go, that would be great. And again, I'll go through that more on Friday when we're live together so I can answer your questions. I do like the PVA glue. And if you don't have PVA glue, these two glue sticks I've found work pretty well as well. The UHU stick, STIC, and the glue stick from Avery. Both of these work well, or your PVA glue. And again, wax linen thread and your basic bookbinding tools, an awl, bone folder, something to cut with, self-healing mat, ruler. For your scroll, there are many ways to go about the scroll. If you got the basic, then you're going to need to find a stick or a dowel. You can go to Hobby Lobby. They've got lots of choices. Sometimes Michael has choices. And this is a piece, an abstract piece, and everything is glued on with matte medium. I'm going to walk you through how to stitch the Momigomi, and you can also glue it. It just depends on what you want. If you want it to be more like fabric, you'll want to stitch. If you're okay with it being a little stiffer, then I really love the matte medium. The matte medium is, in my book, better than the gloss medium because if you get it on top of the papers, you're not going to see that sheen. So if you use PVA glue or gloss or anything like that for your scroll, for your collage, if the glue seeps out, you're going to see it. So I love the matte medium because you can glue it on there. When it dries clear, and you can also work on top of it. So it does seal everything, but it's like a fixative. It seals what's underneath, and you can work on top. You can even use watercolor on top of this, so it's great. I'm using the Liquidex. I like the flip top, but Liquitex or Golden Matte Medium, well worth investing in a little bottle. And I don't recommend Mod Podge. We can talk about that more on Friday. So on Friday, come. If you have any questions about supplies, let me know. If you have questions sooner and you need to email me so that you have all the supplies for Saturday, feel free to email me. You're going to want to think about your color palette for your scroll. And on Friday, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we're going to do some writing. So you want some pen and paper. We're going to do some writing. If you have acrylic paint, great. If you gel plate, great. We'll talk about surface design. And what I'm going to recommend is that for the surface design, you work with what you've already worked with. So if you work with acrylic paint, use that. If you work with sumi inks or watercolors or whatever you like to work in, use that. And if you don't do mark making or you don't paint or whatever, these Momigomi papers, you're going to be able to make it with that. We're also going to think about a theme for our scroll. Do you want it to be like a family history? Do you want it to be about travel? Do you want it to be about family and friends? Do you want it to be about your artwork? Do you want it to be about bookbinding? So think about that and start to collect colors, maybe some fodder or ephemera that you have laying around, different projects, papers that you've made, papers that you've collected. And again, we'll talk about all that if you have questions on Friday on what to bring Saturday. So we are going to have a pretty packed schedule. You will have lots of time to work on all of this, and I'm really excited to connect with you. The other thing you're going to want for our Momigomi is some kind of silicone mat so that when you use the konnyaku sauce, it has something to go on. You can use a silicone mat, you can use something plastic, just something to where you're not ruining a nice table. If you have a craft table and anything goes, awesome. Scissors. Sometimes once you momogami some paper, it doesn't always work to cut it. So sometimes you need a scissors. So whether you're using a blade and or scissors, make sure they're sharp. If you've ever tried to cut through fabric with a dull scissors, you know what I'm talking about. So you want sharp tools. Um, Definitely have a ruler, definitely have a cutting mat, definitely have sharp scissors. Fiskars, the brand Fiskars, I find is a really great brand. These are pinking shears. They're pretty new and sharp. Any kind of fabric scissors will be very helpful. If you're going to stitch on your Momogami paper, you can use your bookbinding wax linen thread. You can use embroidery thread. And if you have one of those travel sewing kits with just the thin thread that goes through like a sewing machine, you can use that. Just make sure whatever you're using that you have a needle that your thread will go through the eye of the needle. So if you need a variety pack of needles with thicker to thinner eye holes for your thread to go through, great. And again, go through what you already have and pick from that. If you have any questions, I'm here. Hope this was helpful. Looking forward to seeing you Friday and Saturday. Bye-bye.